Hello, my name is David Ogletree, and this is Marketing Tech. This is the fourth episode. I'm meeting today with Bill Hartzer from Hartzer.com, billhartzer.com. He is an old-time SEO. He's been around for years, and I've known him for quite a few years as well. And he's a good friend of mine. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me this afternoon. I know we're both in the air conditioning, and because it is really hot here in Texas, and we're both trying to deal with the heat, right?
Yeah, I pretty much don't leave the house. You know, it gets so hot outside. You come in, you feel like you've just taken a shower. It's insane.
Sure.
So today I wanted to kind of talk to you about, kind of your setup, what you use for your daily driver, your computer, your monitors. And then later, I think we're going to talk about digital personal assistants like the Echoes, and then talk a little bit about your monitors and then your trail cams as well. I know you have several trail cams, and
Sure.
So what you're using an Apple MacBook, correct?
So let's just have an Apple MacBook Pro, and had it actually for several years, and it's worked well. It's the last year that they offered the large USB connections,
Right?
Because I had so many kind of devices that used kind of the larger USB, and it wasn't really ready to go to the USB-C yet at that point, and so it's worked well for me. And I do have it connected. When I'm working in the office, I have it connected to two, actually just two smart TVs,
Right.
and those have worked well for me. They're 43-inch and 32-inch TV monitors, or that technically smart TVs, and so I do have the option, to literally turn on TV on one and be working on the other if I need to. So it's another option.
Do you have them attached to the wall?
Yeah. So basically, I'm kind of in a corner, essentially, a corner office, and that is three walls essentially. But where I have it, I essentially have them, actually mounted on, the wooden wall. We're in a log home, so they're literally, mounted to the wood walls, and it works out, off. It's up off of the desk, so it works well for me.
Yeah, it always amazes me how sighted people can do those kind of things. I have to sit 4 inches from my computer, and I have a monitor arm, so I can literally pull it close to me. I sit 4 inches from it, and you can see it behind me.
Sure.
I use that monitor, and my keyboard's actually behind it. So I'm typing with my hands behind my keyboard because it's so close to me, and I literally pull it right up to my face. And sometimes I move it backwards and forwards and up and down, because if I'm looking at the monitor, I can't see the whole thing. I literally have to move my head to see different parts of it. So I try to keep things centered. So a lot of people might maximize Chrome or whatever, but I actually have it fairly, maybe a third of the screen, a quarter of the screen, so I can just see the whole thing.
Sure. So I will, typically, I'm kind of also kind of a unique situation right now, because I'm dealing with, I just had, some eye surgery done, and so on both eyes. And so I'm kind of still getting used to to that. I mean, previously I did have to, have been wearing glasses. And so I've got, essentially the eyes fixed so that I could, see a little bit better. So I do not have to wear glasses when I have the big monitors. And because they're further away, I maybe, let's see, probably, more than arm's length.
Right.
I reach out specifically, I'm cannot touch them. So
Right.
I'm probably, 4 to 5 foot away from the monitors on the wall. And that works well for me with a 4K monitor. And so close up, I'm something like a phone, very, very close up to my, I need some readers,
Oh,
but the types of lenses that I had done, are working out well for me.
right. Yeah. People who are used to seeing me, whenever I'm on my phone, I'm like this, and so that's how I look at it. But
Sure.
I can see just about anything as long as I can hold it close enough. My vision is so nearsighted that it actually amplifies things, which is kind of good. Because
Yep.
my main condition is ocular albinism, and so if I didn't have the myopia, which is just normal nearsighted that a lot of people have, I wouldn't be able to read regular print. I would only be able to read really large print. So my myopia is actually a benefit. To most people, it's a bad thing, and they have to wear glasses. To me, I can't wear glasses, but yet it actually ended up helping me, which was unusual.
Sure.
So you use the Mac most of the time, and what do you do when you need to get onto a PC? Because I know as an SEO, you definitely have to use PCs on occasion.
Sure. So, I'm kind of in a unique situation, I guess, because also that, I'm the only Mac user, essentially in the household, and everybody else is either a Windows or Android, or a Chromebook user. So, that's an option. But at the same time, uh, what I've done in the past, if I have to do large file transfers or crawling of large sites or something like that, if I what I'll do is with my Mac, I'll remote into a separate server, and so that gives me the option to fire up an instance, of a Windows box or Windows or Unix, on a remote server, and either on using um, Amazon Workspaces or something similar to that.
Nice. So I know you use a lot of different crawlers. What are the main crawlers that you use?
Yeah, so I have about 6 or 7 different
Oh
crawlers,
wow.
from on crawl to, let's see, some of them are SaaS based, on crawl, deep crawl, um, Screaming Frog, SEO Spider, Siteliner, which is the more SaaS software as service based,
Right.
as well as Sitebulb.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I've heard that one. Yeah. Yeah. I guess
so
to a smaller extent, SEM Rush kind of has one too, I guess.
Yes, they do have it. SEMrush does have a site audit tool. One of the issues, I guess, one of the issues there really, a fair amount of web hosts tend to block the crawling of SEMrush,
Oh yeah.
SEMrush crawler from time to time.
And
So,
it's quite limited. It's quite limited too. They only have so many URLs, like 5,000 or something, isn't it? Or
yeah, but it is, like I said, the benefit, of using multiple crawlers is you'll find different issues. I mean,
right.
you'll find, and you'll crawl a site with one crawler, and it will find a certain number of pages, and another crawler will find more or less pages, and that may or may not coincide with the number of pages, let's say, that Google has, uh, indexed.
I never thought about
So
that before. So do you actually consolidate the data when you're done, or you just kind of look at it individually?
yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, each one will have, there's certain, if you're doing something like a side migration or something like that, you do want to ideally find all possible URLs.
Right.
And so using multiple crawlers, same thing with using log files and Google Analytics data, you want to, and Google Search Console data, Bing Webmaster Tools data. That is a situation where you really desperately need to find every single possible URL, and you'll find orphan URLs and so forth.
Right.
But when it comes down to, but it turns out though that you will find different crawlers do different things well. Some, will add in some additional options that another crawler will not. There's, Sitebulb, for example, that I ran this morning looking at a site. Sitebulb will look at even server header issues and tell you, that there are server header issues, certain setup in the server header that needs, that are errors or the information that's missing.
Right.
Where something like, some other crawl, essentially some other crawlers do not do that.
Right.
So they'll be, and they all have their pluses and, and weaknesses. Difference though with on crawl, you can actually, any data that you can export from the other crawlers or any other tools, you can export that data and import it into on crawl.
Oh, nice.
And have one interface where you deal with all the URLs and all the data and so forth.
Nice. And you said sometimes you use one of your monitors as a TV. What else do you use it for? Do you like put a spreadsheet up there, or what do you use the second monitor for?
I may, typically I could have, Firefox running on one monitor and Chrome running on the other. I might have email running on one and a browser running on the other. I could have Google Sheets open on one. With URLs and so forth. So it kind of depends on the task. If you're doing something like link building or something like that, where you're doing something, dealing with lists with a lot of URLs. But at the same time, with audits, you could have the audit tool or crawler data on one monitor and Microsoft Word open, and you're actually writing a document, an audit document on the other. So it is helpful, to a certain extent to have, certainly for me, for more than one monitor.
So you live out in the rural area, and I know you probably have issues with your internet. How fast is your internet being out as far as you are?
We have, we unfortunately, I have to rely on a DSL line, and which is really old. At least those lines have been in the ground 30 years or so. We had one time 15 years ago where they replaced one of the lines. I know the lines going from the switch going out halfway. We're 2 miles from the switch, so we're. So it's a fair distance. So they can only push, through that DSL line. They can try to push 9 meg. We get about 3 to 5 typically. So it's enough to do some web browsing, enough to do email, enough to do, right now. I mean,
you're streaming, so it works. That works.
Video calling, as long as we're not doing anything else on the line, like downloading. A Fortnite game or something like that, then something then we have okay internet. I am excited about the new Starlink service, though.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
But it's going to be coming out. I know by it may or may not. I may be in this house. When it comes out, or it might be a couple of years.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell. But that's the service that by Elon Musk, and the Tesla organization, essentially, that they're doing. They put up low orbiting satellites. So satellites that are putting out the internet signal. So. I believe they're only about 575 kilometers up in the sky.
Wow.
They're not very high. And so they're orbiting. And I know they have 600 satellites now. They're looking to get about 10,000 up. And so once they get those, I believe that, their goal is to have, everybody have a 1 gig internet.
Wow.
And 1 gig per second. So that's, it would be great, because I know that in the larger cities, that a lot of people deal with, do have the faster internet. But once you get maybe 10 miles out of 10, 15, 20 miles outside of the city, you're looking at, there's so many people, even in my area, that it's such an issue.
Right.
Within 20 miles of me, there's so many people that rely on internet that's 1 to 3 meg per second.
Ugh, wow.
So you really, at that point, you can only have one device if you wanted to get Netflix or something like that. You can't really stream that well, and as far as video goes. So it does, and certainly someone like me who really relies on, obviously, the faster the internet, the more comes down to the faster the internet I have, the more money I can make, right? As a digital marketer, and be more efficient. So it definitely is as needed. Satellite, it's about the same, and I know that you run into data caps, and then it will slow, your speed down. You might get 20 meg a second for the first couple of days, but then after that, they'll slow your usage down to 1 meg a second or something like that. Right. So it's not really much. The other option, I know, Nextlink and Rise Broadband and a lot of these rural areas, just they will put up a tower, and that will be a fixed. A fixed wireless will essentially, you'll have a dish that points directly. It's kind of, but it has to be line of sight. We do have some of those towers around us, but unfortunately where this particular location, we're actually kind of in a hole or a valley. And so we literally cannot get a signal like that.
Right.
So it's interesting. And then I'm assuming, up in the Rocky Mountains, up in, Wyoming, Colorado, Montana and so forth, that those areas, Idaho, that have, mountains, it's a whole different situation. You can't really get any, it'd be difficult to have fixed wireless unless you put the tower, up on the top of every mountain, at 10,000, 20,000 feet. Well, not 20,000, but on 12,000 feet on the top of a mountain. And let everybody, so there's those issues. So I am excited about the Starlink service. I think that will have a big impact for a lot of people in rural areas and that aren't in the cities.
Yeah, I live a few minutes from downtown Houston, so I have gig fiber from AT&T, and it's quite luxurious. It's amazing. It's really nice.
Sure.
And we actually I put a mesh network in my house. Have you tried using one of those?
Yeah. So we, the only way we could, we have a house that has a lot of add-ons where, it was house, and then where, the front part of the house was added on, the back part of the house. So there's a lot of different rooms, and with the way the internet signal and the Wi-Fi comes in, the only way that we were able, to actually get a signal at the other end of the house was through a mesh network. Yeah. And so we tried different Wi-Fi extenders, that basically you plug into the wall and it gets a signal and it's supposed to broadcast it more. But the mesh network has just been a life changer for us because
me too.
We can get the same speed, if I'm sitting right next to the Wi-Fi box, here in my office, where the Wi-Fi box goes directly into the, into the wired, the wire that goes outside. Mm-hmm. I can get the same signal in here that I, can hundreds of feet away.
Right.
And so it makes a really big difference.
So is it completely wireless, or do you have any wired nodes?
The only wired potentially node that I have is the wire is in the ground. It goes to a box on the side of the house, and then literally, from, it goes at the box. It's 7 meg a second, and then by the time it goes 15 feet
Yeah.
through the wall to the router or the modem, it goes down to 5.
Oh, wow.
So and then from so I can go plug directly into the router or modem, and then but at the same time, like I said, it then that 5 megasecond is broadcast through Google Wi-Fi, which is just makes a huge difference.
One of the things I did, because I have a 3-story house, it's one of those skinny, tall townhouses, and so I had a guy come in and convert all of my telephone lines, because my house was set up so that all the telephone lines and cable and everything went up to my closet on the 3rd floor. So it all terminated at the same place. So I had him go to all the telephone lines in the house and convert them to RJ11 to RJ45, which is the network standard, because they're the same kind of wiring for the most part, depending on it. Some of them can be higher grade or lower grade, which I found out some of mine were good and some of them were bad. And he pulled them out and they were like, they had stripped them down like really far, and it was horrible wiring, but I was able to get several of them working to actually 1 gig. And so I plugged my mesh network on the 3rd floor, and it actually by cable comes all the way down to the 1st floor. And so that way I'm able to get really fast internet on the 3rd floor. Otherwise, the 1st floor would have to connect to the 2nd floor, and the 2nd floor would have to connect to the 3rd floor wirelessly, and that would slow things down quite a bit. So if you can actually wire those things up, they get even faster. It's really amazing.
Yes, so definitely good option. So
yeah. So what brand do you use? What, do you know what mesh network you're using?
Yes, Google Wi-Fi.
Oh, use the Google.
So definitely Google Wi-Fi. Now the newer Google Wi-Fi devices actually have a built-in speaker, and it's also a Google Assistant.
Yep.
So at the same time, it's combining all that. The older Google Wi-Fi, which we have a few of those originally from last year or the year before, those do only just do the Google Wi-Fi signal. It does not have the assistant built in and the speaker, but which is fine because they still work very well, and they work well to broadcast the signal out. We have those. That's how we're able to connect some security cameras.
Right.
So the security cameras actually then are wired. They're certain, like one of them has one network security wire has to be wired from their home base to the Google Wi-Fi, right. And so we're able to do it that way, and then at home base then broadcast the signal out to the security cameras.
Yeah,
it's interesting because those security cameras, we've tested several different types, and when you have a lower speed internet access, there are certain security cameras, that are Wi-Fi that just don't work.
Right.
And on a lower speed, you have to have a higher speed connection because, and so, for example, the ring devices, just the way they work, the technology they use, they will not work on a slower speed, that's less than 5 megasecond. They need 10, 20, 30 megasecond to be able for ring to even work.
Right.
So we had bought some, and those ring cameras we had to literally sell because they literally did not work with the lower speed internet connection. The Eufy Cam, EUFY, which is done by the same company that makes Anchor, that camera has been very, very well done, very well for us. And then we also have a Solium camera that, and both of those are wireless, and they connect by the Wi-Fi network to an app, and you can view them live on an app, or it will save the data, save the video, and then the one you charge once a year, the Eufy Cam, which is pretty cool because you could put it in a hard to reach place, like at the top of the eaves above your garage or something like that.
Right.
Where, you don't have to climb a ladder once a year and bring it down to charge it. and then the other one also has a solar panel on it that does well because it will it as well charges that battery.
Cool. So you have a couple of digital assistants like Echoes and Google Homes. How many of those things do you have in the house, and do you put them in
So
the same
essentially,
room?
we have a Siri, which is built into iPhone and iPad and so forth. Those, and then as well as the several of the Google devices, and then as well as the Alexa devices. Those uh, so there are some rooms in the house where it has a Google device and an Alexa, but also there's others that just maybe have Alexa. So it does come in handy if you're honestly, if I'm washing the dishes in the kitchen and want some to play some music, and hands are literally, where, soapy and you wouldn't want to touch any kind of, device to start the radio or even switch the TV channel. The Alexa device is great just to tell it to play some music.
Right. I know originally one of the reasons you kind of wanted them was for testing for marketing purposes. What have you used them for as far as marketing?
Yeah, a couple of different things. I mean, I have used them. For example, if one of the tricks is if you were able to record a video, that at the end of that video, maybe ask, say, okay, Google, remind me tomorrow to do something, to sign up for this or to go visit this website tomorrow, at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Well, doing that, would actually maybe get that device to set a reminder because for them. And I've tested that, and that works. It depends also whether or not they have set it up to recognize their voice or not. But it does, does work. And then also, so that helpful. I mean, I've used it for various other keyword research. I do a lot of keyword research, and so it's interesting to see. I'll pick on SEMrush as a keyword tool, but if you use SEMrush, you put in the word "Okay Google" or "Hey Alexa," those are wake up words, and so those wake up words are will be attached. You'll be able to see the keywords, and they're attached. Those wake up words are attached to those keywords those people search for. So you'll know specifically that, okay, this keyword query is actually from somebody who used a voice search and voice searched a device versus using a keyboard to enter that search query. Then it turns out when you look at the voice searches and narrow them down. Those, I believe, are when somebody said the keyword or the wake up word rather twice, and then the keyword. And
Oh,
so sometimes we all don't. We'll use the wake up word once, and then the device will respond most of the cases or most of the time. Whereas, so the search numbers, if you're using SEMrush or a keyword tool, and you put in OK Google and you look at it for a keyword, then that's probably about 10% of the time, maybe 20% of the time that someone has used that voice search, that wake up word twice. They may say, hey, OK Google, and then they may say OK Google again, and have a hesitation, and that's why the OK Google is appended to the keyword.
I hadn't
But
thought of that.
so yeah, so anyway, but that it is one way to distinguish absolutely whether or not it was a voice search or not.
Yeah,
It's a voice search if they have the wake up word attached to that keyword, and so
yeah.
it's a good way to look at those
I
as
noticed
well.
several years ago those keywords started showing up in Google Ads. I would see that in my search term reports. I would see the OK Google or Alexa, that kind of thing.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
But I believe that when that does happen, it's when somebody said the wake up word twice,
Right.
because the wake up word is typically uh, not, is stripped out. And so
Yeah.
if they've said it twice, it will show up. And so there's only a certain percentage, a lower percentage of people who use the wake up word twice
Right.
versus actually the searches. So you could probably, I would say, it's only 20% of the time that they use it twice.
Right.
And so if you multiply those numbers out, there are actually a lot of people who do use those assistants, and do look for those, that information.
Yeah, I noticed in conferences the last few years, I'm starting to see more and more sessions about these assistants and how to optimize for them and stuff like that. So you were telling me that you've got a new service. What is the new service you were talking about?
So the new service is actually, called DN Protect, and essentially, I'm the part of it that I've developed is the algorithm behind DNP Score, which is for domain names, and you can put in you can get your DNP Score for free. You can actually go to dnprotect.com, and for domain name protect, DN Protect, and you can actually see your DNP Score for any domain name. And essentially, there's an algorithm behind it, and it's looking at all sorts of different issues related to domain names, like whether or not you have DNSSEC set up on the domain, which is DNS security. Basically, the DNS has been set up at the registry so that any DNS queries are encrypted. That's one small part, where that way somebody cannot essentially hack and divert the domain's traffic to another source. There's also things like DMARC and DKIM, and whether or not there's a potential trademark issue, and so forth. So overall, DN Protect looks at the domain overall, the risk and how risky that domain is.
Right.
And that we've tied that risk to essentially a service that's essentially a type of insurance or warranty for that domain name. So if there are any legal issues that come up, like for example, someone files a domain dispute, or somebody steals the domain name, somebody files a trademark lawsuit against the domain name owner, or so forth. That all of that is taken essentially covered. So you basically don't lose your domain name. So if you're using, I use my email, bill@billhartzer.com, and that's my primary email. And if I lost billhartzer.com for some reason, my website would go down, my email would, not work. And, it would be a financial disaster for my business. So if you have an e-commerce site, you would definitely want to protect your domain name so you don't lose it.
Yeah, I actually used that many years ago. I had bought a domain name. I bought it included the website as well, but I spent $3,000, and so
Sure.
I kind of retired for a little bit, and I forgot about it. Just let it go. I could have sold. It was a really good domain.
Yeah.
I could have sold it easily, but it was just a bad deal. So thank you so much for coming. I mean, we've talked about some really cool stuff, and
Yep.
and so you have if you want to know anything about Bill, go to billhartzer.com for his blog, and hartzer.com for his SEO audits and the different things he does. And of course, DN Protects, is it plural? dnprotects.com?
DN Protect, with no S, the singular, dnprotect.com.
dnprotect.com. Okay. And of course, I'm David Ogletree from Marketing Tech, and WME Training is my company. I do pay-per-click training. If you like this video, please subscribe, like it, comment, watch the other ones. We've got some really great ones coming up. I have the next 2 weeks scheduled. A lot of great people that you've probably heard of in the SEO industry are coming to talk to me about their technology. And thank you so much for coming, Bill. And nice seeing you again. I always enjoy talking to you.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks again, David, for having me. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.